Good evening, I'm King, and I'm doing my presentation on this topic, Hong Kongers, an ethnicity, a race, a nation, or something else. As ethnicity, race, and nation are very similar concepts, I'll quote Steve Fenton for marking the difference in the outset. First, all three of them refer to a common core. Usually, people of the same race, ethnic group, or nation are of the same descent and belong to the same cultural community, so they have a common core which they belong to. However, the peripherals of the definition of three terms are different. For ethnic group, the concept refers to a subset within a nation state usually. Usually, different ethnic groups refer to different people with different cultures, and the culture mark their social boundaries. And the emphasis is usually not on the physical appearance. For race, the concept is somewhat similar to a subspecies, and it is usually used to denote the abstract conception of division of humans. And usually, it makes reference to the physical or visible difference as the marker of different people. For nation, the concepts give a stronger political undertone, and there is assumption that nations are or should be associated with a state or state-like political form. But as shown in the recent book of Hong Kong nationalism, a nation need not be associated with a separate state, or even need not be associated with a state-like form. Now we'll go to the definition of Hong Kongers for the purpose of our discussion. According to the Oxford Dictionary Online, it means a person born or living in Hong Kong. And here's some background information about the demographics of Hong Kong. Apart from the major Chinese or Cantonese groups, there are other minorities such as the South Asians, the Caucasians, and other Asian people. And I'm sure you'll know about these information. And the distribution of different languages spoken is similar to the distribution of the groups. But as Hong Kong has been a British colony for a long time, a lot of people, around 60% or more in Hong Kong, speak English. So we'll go to a question of whether Hong Kong people are a separate ethnic group. So do Hong Kong people have a common language or cultural experience that marks Hong Kong people different from others? while Hong Kong have a very strong culture at least since the 1970s because of the rise of television and Cantonese pop songs, it is questionable whether it could mark Hong Kong people as a separate ethnic group. Because first, there are many Cantonese-speaking groups in also in the province of Canton in China, in Malaysia, certain parts of Malaysia, Singapore, and also there are a lot of others Cantonese-speaking people in other Commonwealth and English-speaking countries. Also, there are other groups within Hong Kong. As shown in the previous slide, there are Indians, Nepalese, British, Thai, and etc. and different ethnic groups within Hong Kong. So it is hard to say Hong Kongers is in itself a different ethnic group because it itself contains so many ethnic groups already. Okay, we'll go to a question whether Hong Kong people is a race. Under ICER, the definition of race includes color, descent, and national and ethnic origin. So as we have said, the concept overlaps. There's a large overlap between race and ethnicity. It is notable that while 19th century science has give rise to the concept of race, it is largely accepted that it is impossible to define race genetically or biologically, because the genetic diversity is actually greatest in the groups within Africa, and each group of humans that migrated from Africa into other parts of the world is actually a genetic subset of the groups in the Africa population. So it is entirely consistent with the out of Africa migration model of humans. So basically, it is impossible to define race genetically. And given that the concept of race is a largely archaic concept and also a social construct, it is impossible to say that Hong Kong people is a separate race. For the concept of nation, Stalin has defined nation as people with a common language, living in a clearly demarcated geographical area with a common economic life, and they psychologically belong to the same group based on a stable culture. And it is often said that a nation is an imagined community. So the concept of nation has both subjective and objective criteria. While the objective criteria for Hong Kongers seems to be fulfilled, that is, there is a stable culture in Hong Kong. They live in a same geographical area for more than a century. They have the same economic life. However, according to Hong Kong Youth Census, there is a significant number of people in Hong Kong who perceive themselves subjectively as, at least subjectively, as nationals of China or Chinese in Hong Kong or Hong Kong people in China. So while there is a trend for at least amongst youngsters to identify themselves as pure Hong Kong people, the subjective perception of a lot of people here that they are Chinese national means that the criteria of imagined community or the psychological identification with Hong Kong only has not been fulfilled, and Hong Kongers as a nation is yet to be formed. Next, it is often argued that Hong Kongers are a civic nation. A common definition is any Hong Kong resident who abides by the Hong Kong values, supports Hong Kong first, and willing to protect Hong Kong, then he or she is a Hong Konger whenever he or she starts to live here. The question I have for this definition is, what are exactly Hong Kong values? Who can give an all-inclusive definition? If one could speak neither Cantonese nor English, then is he or she a Hong Konger? So my preliminary conclusion is, while Hong Kongers are neither an ethnic group and definitely not a race, a Hong Kong nation is yet to be formed, and it is to be seen whether it could be a nation in the future. And according to the Financial Secretary John Tsang, he said that attempting to define who is a Hong Kongers brings endless conflict. Because he said, according to him, the people of Hong Kong originate from different parts of China, including Canton, Shanghai, Fukien, or other places in mainland China. While this gives a partial account of the identity and where Hong Kongers come from, it seems to ignore other minority ethnic groups within Hong Kong, including South Asians, including Indians or Nepalese or Thais or other Caucasians. On the other hand, the scholar Wan Qin gave the theory of remnant population in Hong Kong. His explanation is that Hong Kong people come from a few different sources. The first is the indigenous inhabitants who came before British colonization that date back to the Song dynasty. The second is the population brought by British colonization, including British, Europeans, and also Indian traders and Parsi people. And the most notable group is the refugees who fled to Hong Kong after the communist takeover in China. And also, the fourth source of people is others from Southeast Asia, when there are political instabilities in those parts of the world. And his theory is that they are remnant population from another time under another regime who fled to Hong Kong, and they are the source of the Hong Kong population. My comment is that this theory of the remnant populations give a better historical account of the population of Hong Kong, and based on actual historical circumstances. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much.